are an idol worshiper, mechalel Shabbat, someone that does not work on his anger, kol mine Guéhinom sholtin bo. What does it mean that Guéhinom sholtin bo? It says, one of the commentaries, it is impossible for an idol worshiper to avoid going to Guéhinom permanently. Now, I have a shiur about Guéhinom. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Why? Most people probably get a heart attack within the first 10 minutes. Once they understand what actually happens. Because we live in a generation that unfortunately people that look like me and they call themselves rabbis lie to people. They tell them that Guéhinom doesn't exist. Hell doesn't exist. They tell them, no, everybody's okay, don't worry. Even though Torah says otherwise. In many places. Including this week's parasha. Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin says, what happened to the Meraglim that lied about Eretz Israel, that spoke against Eretz Israel, says they have no share of the world to come. So what does it mean they have no share of the world to come? It says, first of all, they were punished in this world. They spoke against the land of Israel. Hashem took their tongue and connected to their belly button and let them rot in front of everybody. A vicious, horrible, disgusting death. This is this week's parasha. But aside from that, after they died, he says they have no share of the world to come. What does no share of the world to come mean? It means Guéhinom. What does Guéhinom mean? Anyone who wants to know a lot of details should watch my shiur about Guéhinom. Just hit over 10,000 views. So apparently a lot of people want to know about Guéhinom. A lot of people want to know about Guéhinom. But it'll scare you. It'll scare you. And the reason why is because it's real. And you need to know a little bit about it. Anyone that knows a little bit of Hebrew, I brought a book, you could read a little bit about it. I can't give it to you because it's my book, but I can show you. And I give you a verse. A verse in the Torah where Yeshua ben Levi, one of the greatest tzaddikim that ever lived, one of the 10 people that never died, went to Gan Eden with his suit on. 10 people in history never died. Hashem decided to take them from this world into the next world. One of them is Eliyahu Navi. One of them is Yeshua ben Levi. One of them is Benjamin. One of them is Eliezer, the helper of Avraham Avinu, and so on and so forth. Yeshua ben Levi, he had a good friend. Who was it? Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu the prophet, he was his friend. They were friends. So Eliyahu Navi comes to him and he says, are you interested in seeing Guéhinom? And he says, yeah, sure, why not? Why not? I want to see it. Anybody here interested in seeing Guéhinom? Not so much, right? I promise you don't want to see it. But I'll tell you a little bit about it, just so you know a little 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%, what it sounds like. So you understand? This is real. Why do you need to know it's real? Because if we continue driving on Shabbat, if we continue being idol worshippers, if we continue eating taref, if we continue going against Hashem, if we continue being immodest and causing guys to sin, this is the option. Hashem doesn't want to send you there. I promise you He doesn't want to send you there. If He wants to send you there, He'll take you there right now. First class. It's not a hard thing. But if a person knows, if I drive really fast, I could potentially die, most likely they're not going to drive really fast. If a person knows, if I drive really fast, I'm guaranteed to die, they're definitely not going to drive fast. That's the point of Guéhinom. Hashem says it's there, it's available, a lot of people are there, some are not ever leaving. Unfortunately, their sins were too great to the extent where they have to be destroyed. It's real. And anyone that tells you otherwise is considered 100% a heretic. Meaning you cannot count them as a Jew. Even if they have a beard longer than mine. Even if they call themselves a rabbi. Even if they're a famous rabbi. Why? Because this is one of the ikarim of Judaism. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, פעם אחת הייתי מהלך בדרך ומצאתי אליהו הנביא זכור לטוב. אמר לי, רצונך שעמידך על שער גיהנום. אמרתי לו, הן. Says Yeshua ben Levi says, one time I was walking around and I saw Eliyahu Navi. And Eliyahu Navi said to me, you have any interest in seeing Guéhinom? I said, sure. So he took me there. He took me there. And what did he say? You see, he showed me people in Guéhinom that are being hung by their nose. Why are they hung by their nose? You guys know sometimes women wear a lot of perfume, right? You enjoy that perfume and she's not your wife? That's the punishment. Ubnei Adam shetluim bidem. Some people hung by their hands. Why are they hung by their hands? You ever take something that's not yours? That's what happens. Ubnei Adam shetluim belshonam. You ever say something that you're not allowed to say? You lied. You lied. You said lashon hara about somebody. That's what happens. Ubnei Adam shetluim beragleim. Some people are hung by their legs. You ever go somewhere that you're not really supposed to go to? Instead of going to a shiur Torah, you went to the bar. You went to the pub. You went to nightclub. You went to one of those places. That's part of the process. Verani nashim kliot bedadehen. He showed me women hung by their chest. You know, sometimes a woman, she likes to get attention. She wants all the guys to look at her. So she wears a shirt that's perfectly, shows everything. Meaning it's almost like it's not there. She shows everything. She shows everything. It's almost like it's not there. Or, better yet, she calls herself a Rabbani because she covers everything, but it's so tight, it might as well not be there. Because with the clothes, without the clothes, you're not really sure if she's wearing anything. It's so tight. So the Yaron Reuven says, those people, they're going to have a special section, they're hung by that. You want to show your chest? No problem. We're going to show everything to the whole, every single person that goes is going to see you hanging by what you want to show the whole world. Verani bnei Adam shetluim be'eineim. He showed me people that are hung by their eyes. You know, some guys, they like to look at those girls. They like to look at those girls. Ah, Hashem says, you want to look at them? No problem. That's what you do. They hung them by the eyes. Ve'ani bnei Adam shema'achilim otam besaram. We're almost done with this section because I'm already seeing that you guys are scared enough. And he says, he showed me people that Hashem fed them their own flesh. Why? They ate nevelot v'trefot. You ate non-kosher food? I said eat kosher food, no? Oh, you ate non-kosher because you like the little pepperoni in your pizza? You like a little worms in your salad from Subway because you thought it was kosher even though it doesn't say kosher on the door. The only thing that was kosher is something that you thought about but not in the restaurant. So I'll feed you something else. Who? Yourself. Now someone's going to tell you, wait a minute. Once you die, there's nobody anymore. There's nobody anymore. So what happened? How could the body, how could the neshama suffer all of this stuff? Well, Rabotai Yekarim, the neshama, according to the Gemara, feels 60 times more than the body does. Our perception of what the neshama is as something that feels nothing, as some, ghost that just flies through the wall or something like you saw in movies. That's not what the neshama is. The neshama is actually restricted by the body. To the extent that once the neshama leaves the body, the feeling is 60 times more. It goes into a lot more details, but you get the point. You want to know more, just watch my shiur about Guéhinom. Why do I tell you all this stuff? I don't necessarily want anybody to have nightmares, but you need to have a little bit. You need to have a little bit. Why? Because when a person does not watch his speech, does not watch his behavior, does not watch all the things that they're doing, they could simply become their own worst enemy. Now, on one end, they could become their own worst enemy by leading their own soul into a place that's called Guéhinom, which is real, which is painful, which in some cases the Gemara says never ends. Some people go to Guéhinom for a limited amount of time, a year, a month, 5 years, 1,000 years. But then the Gemara Masechet Rosh Hashanah in several places says that some people go there and never leave. Here the Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah page 16b says And many of those who sleep in the dusty earth will awaken. These for everlasting life, and these for shame, for everlasting abhorrence. It says there are certain people that will get punished, but they'll be resurrected with the dead. They'll get out of Guéhinom. They'll eventually go to Gan Eden. But there are certain people that will never leave Guéhinom because they died a mechalel Shabbat, because they died an idol worshiper, because they died someone that did not do tshuva. And one of the sources for that is the last verse in the book of Isaiah. Last verse of the book of Isaiah, you can look at it. Isaiah says to Am Israel, and they will go out and see the corpses of the men who rebelled against Hashem, against me. For their decay will not cease, and their fire will not be extinguished. They will lie in disgrace before all mankind. Here we see that the prophet Isaiah literally says there's a place of, unfortunately, eternal suffering. Now, Guéhinom doesn't necessarily need to just be what I just described. Meaning this eternal, horrible, horrific place. Anybody here ever see a scary movie? You guys saw scary movies before? Okay, this is worse. Because it's real. The movie ends at some point. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. Guéhinom can sometimes be in this world. How? Somebody that lives with anxiety constantly. Someone that's constantly depressed. Someone that's constantly angry at everything that moves. That's an emotional Guéhinom. That person is constantly suffering. It's not fire per se. They're not being hung. They're not suffering physically, but they're suffering emotionally. They're constantly depressed. They're constantly thinking negatively. They're constantly thinking things are going to work out in a bad way. They constantly look at everything in a bad way. They have no hope. They have no dreams. They have no aspirations. They simply can't wait to die because they think their troubles will be over. David HaMelech said in Tehillim 30, verse 4, Hashem, you've raised my soul up from Sheol. You took my soul out of Guéhinom. Now, David HaMelech was alive when he said this. Meaning that, what is David HaMelech saying? He said, Hashem, I was down, you took me out. Meaning that even being in a depression, even being in a horrible state of mind, that's also a section of Guéhinom. It's just you put yourself in there. You put yourself in there. The Guéhinom in this world, we put ourselves in. The Guéhinom in the next world, we also put ourselves in, but we don't realize it. If a person thinks about his actions, thinks about his behavior, thinks about what she's doing, thinks about what he's doing, they'll realize that most of the problems that they have in their life is actually within their hands. They brought it to themselves. And Rabbi Ephraim says, my Rav, he says, if somebody told you, do you want cancer? How many people here, by a show of hands, how many people here says yes, you want cancer? Anybody here want cancer? Once, twice, 3 times? No? Same price? No? Anybody here want diabetes? Diabetes maybe? Anybody here want AIDS? Anybody here want heart attack? No, right? With the exception of AIDS, the other 3 people bring on themselves. AIDS also. But the other 3, they bring on themselves without even realizing it. Now if somebody told you, do you want any one of these horrible, deadly diseases if I paid you $1 million? How many people would say, you know what? I'll take a little chemo for $1 million. How many? How many people? $2 million. $2 million to get a little cancer. No? How many? $2 million cancer. $2 million diabetes. $2 million. You're actually thinking about it? You gotta come to every shoe. You gotta come to every shoe. $2 million for cancer. No? Oh. Anyone that's actually contemplating it, you should go to the cancer unit and tell them, I want to see what a cancer patient looks like. No, be'emet, you need to see it, because then you realize now you don't want it. Now, of course, no one here would take cancer for any price. Not 1 million, not 2 million, not 2 billion. No one here will take diabetes for any price. No one here would take a heart attack for any price. Rabbi Chaim asks us, then why are we giving it to ourselves for free? If you're not going to take it for 2 million, for 5 million, for 100 million, why are you giving it to yourself for free? By living a life full of anger. You know how many people die all the time because they got so angry they got a heart attack? You know how many people lose their minds to the point where they literally make themselves sick? The truth is that it's the majority of people. What we wouldn't take for an endless amount of money, well, Ephraim reminds us, we unfortunately sometimes give it to ourselves for free. We give ourselves Guéhinom in this world even though we didn't want it, by simply not paying attention. Now,